Philip Keller has written a wonderful book that, to me, and I think it was Rabboni was the name of it, but it just detailed Mary's struggle and the obscurity, but just the commonness, the ordinariness of that event, and yet it was the event that changed the world, and yet God chose to do it in such an obscure region of the world, in such an obscure place of an obscure region, and to do it with two teenagers, probably. Mary more than likely was 14 to 16. Joseph, may not have been 20, and that's who he picked to do what he did.
That's a point of encouragement, I think, to us, because as mothers of children, we want our kids to be able to see the glory of the moment of what the Lord has done. We have family videos. We were watching those the other day, trying to impress upon our children the significance of Christmas. And they're looking around, they're playing with a toy, or they're wanting, they're distracted by the Christmas tree as we're looking at the nativity scene. And yet, to think that it was any different in Jesus' day, to think that they weren't real people, they didn't have the same distractions, stomach growling in the middle of something significant or whatever, isn't really looking at it in a real way. It was with flesh and blood people like you and I, even as we try to impress the significance of something spiritual on our children, there's still the flesh just totally wrapped around us in that process.
Yeah, let me ask the two of you, your theme that you had on make room, let every heart make room for Christ. How, as parents, as mothers, as wives, as a church, David, for you, how do we do that at Christmas time? I mean, how do we make, in the midst of all the stuff that's going on with Christmas, how do you make room for Jesus in your family, in your life?
I think it starts with just the vigilance of putting Jesus first, and that's every season of life, every season of the year, that's a challenge, but it's really a challenge at Christmas time. And so it means making that point to pull back and say, what is significant, what is most important. And I have to confess, as a mother, I've gotten caught up. You see the Martha Stewarts on television showing us how to make the prettiest packages or decorate our home or cook certain things. You can get so caught up in that you miss out on what is the most important part. So there has to be, and I believe that the Old Testament tradition of the wife setting the home, the tone for the home, is so true. And so as I think that as women, as wives, it's real important for us not to get caught up in the commercialization, but to let Jesus be first, even if the Christmas lights don't get put on the outside of the house.
Oh yeah,
yeah. We're still waiting.
So
I think one of the things, I was just talking to our son and daughter, Dave and Renee, and they're 35 and 30, and I was asking them, what are some things about Christmas that you remember that was positive. And one of the things that they both said was that we had this book, and it was just a book written, and it was about the Christmas story, and had some other things about Christmas too, ideas. And that was one of their most cherished memories, so much that even Renee, once she got married, said, can I have that book? Which you don't know the little things that make a difference. And so, like, stories mean so much to children, I think. So that's one thing, that traditions, what we do in pointing to Jesus, and not negating the gifts, because Jesus did receive the gifts for himself, but put it in the light of that God's provided for us, and it may just be one little gift, or it may be several, but that's not the issue. The issue is that, and our children have a real heart to give back, like they enjoy. Like Dave was telling us that they have two girls that they are now having their two girls fill up a shoebox type and go give that to some children that don't have, as far as the physical. And so there's just different ways I think we can minister to our kids and to us. I mean, that's a blessing I didn't know that. It's a blessing for me to hear that. So I think that part of it is, like you said, the daily, just day by day, live for Jesus. And sometimes we blow it, but
and the less is more. I mean, this is such an incredibly busy time, because companies are having office parties, and you're trying to figure out how to get gifts to all the people that are on your list to try to do, and you're fighting the crowds in the malls and as well as the regular routine that folks have. And I think that it's important to just try to encourage the Lord's people. Less is more. Now, try to think this ahead and
Now, what do you mean by that? Less is more.
I mean that instead of trying to do 50 different things that have some spiritual dimension to them, just look out far enough if it's going to be Christmas Eve, if it's going to be Christmas morning, if it's going to be a couple of things leading up to that point in time where you just gather your family around and we clear the deck, get everything else out, turn the TV off, or we're going to focus on the Christmas story and telling as parents, giving our appreciation of what Jesus has done with regard to the Christmas. But I think what I see as a pastor is that our people just get so tired during this season. They just it's supposed to be joyful, but by the time Christmas finally gets here, and you see it on their faces in the Sundays that in the worship times, that there's just a weariness that comes from all the hustle and bustle that goes on. I think it's interesting, Sammy, and Shirley and I have talked about this a good bit, that from the New Testament standpoint, and even from the standpoint of the history of the church, it was not the birth of Jesus that was as much celebrated as it was the resurrection of Jesus.
Yeah.
And we have almost thought, just and I don't want to be stoned for saying this, but just almost let commercialism take whatever it is they've done with Christmas. Let it be a time where we celebrate family, we're looking forward to getting together, we eat a lot and so forth. But when it comes to Easter, and we're talking about the death, burial, resurrection of the baby who was born, then we pull out the stops, clear the area, and we celebrate him, and we honor that and preach the gospel and recognize because that does seem to be the trumpet blast again and again, that he was raised from the dead according to the scriptures. The hope of the gospel is that there are no bones in a tomb anywhere.
One of the things that I appreciated Sunday at church, you made the statement when you first got up, is that we have two symbols at the back of the auditorium of the church. One was a manger and one was a cross, and I really appreciated that those two symbols were together, and they are just that, symbols, but that Jesus, symbolizing that Jesus was born to die. That's why he came to this earth.
Right.
He came to take the punishment for our sins, and so pointing to that. Let me say a little something about gifts, and because the tensions that come with Christmas. One of the tensions is people go in debt. Right. And then that tension goes down the road for a long, long way. One of the things, probably the best thing I've ever done at Christmas was actually in the month before my mother died. I didn't know she was going to die. We went home our thing is in December. We always go to Louisiana to visit our family. And that particular Christmas, I just had it in my heart to write a tribute to my mother. About what she meant to me. It was very realistic. It wasn't just glamour type stuff, but just a realistic little tribute. And then I framed it, and I gave that to her as a Christmas present. It cost me very little to nothing. It was mostly my time, my thoughts, what was in my heart, and I gave that to her, and that meant so much to her. What I didn't know was that in less than a month from that time that I gave her that she would be diagnosed with cancer, and 21 days later she'd be dead.
Goodness.